What a month, what a month. Holy mackerel. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Change the F Up. Of course, this is indeed part 2 of the day in the life of a cosplayer. And of course, as always, I am Nate the Effing Great, joined here by the Mary Valentine to my Joey Wheeler, that being Miss Victory Bell. And how are you doing?
Good. I'm a little tired, but I'm good.
Little tired? Well, it was funny because before we even started, I looked at her and I just see this 1,000-yard stare where it's just like, oh boy, this is going to be a fun episode. So I could tell that this past weekend definitely took it out of you. I mean, if you haven't seen the pictures from this last week's C2E2 convention, definitely do. Her last 2 costumes were just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the Saturday one was amazing, and the Sunday one kind of took me a bit off guard. I'm like, well, that's a bit of a new one. Looks like a bit of a rainbow kitty, but I know that so many people are just like, oh, how can you not know this person? So please, let the hate comments commence right now. Geez Louise, I look at that and just think wow, this is going to be interesting because, of course, with this being day 2, we're going to be talking about a lot of the final preparations before getting into a day at a convention or at a con, as a lot of people would like to say. So last week we talked about all the pre-steps, talking about everything that needs to just get into, creating a costume. And now this one will probably be a little more prolonged because I'm talking to somebody who puts so much time and effort into creating the best of the costumes. And again, check out her page, victorybell.com, facebook.com/victorybell cosplay. You'll definitely be very impressed. So how about we start with this one? What was one of the first cosplay costumes that you actually created? I think we talked about this last week, but I'm guessing, we should probably start from the beginning of, some of the final things that you've done and build up into that. So the first cosplay costume you did was Catwoman, correct?
Correct.
So comparing that to what you probably have to do now, it's probably changed immensely, and there's probably a lot more work going into the costumes you do nowadays than back then, correct?
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. Catwoman, like I said, was more like pulling pieces out of my closet and piecing them together and then just going to buy a whip and cat ears. While now it's I'm actually doing more of my own, making, graphically designing, warbler work, all the stuff that goes into what... I don't know if this is the right term to use, but a professional, in quotes, I don't know. Somebody who does this for more of a living and less of just, a one-time kind of a one-time session type of thing. I like to try to do this this is my career now, so I want to show that I'm actually doing it throughout the whole day, and it is my job. It's a full-time job. So I guess that's why I go a little more extensive into my creations now.
Awesome. And also, ladies and gentlemen, as a side note, I did put down on our Change the F Up page, which you can check out on facebook.com/Change the F Up 1776. I did mention that over the last few days, I've actually been looking at a lot of Arkham Asylum series, Arkham Knight series, and looking at the Catwoman that they portrayed, as well as a couple other ones from Telltale Gamings and stuff like that, and legitly, I looked at that and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, I think that my co-host would fit this perfectly. So next to Elizabeth Banks playing Poison Ivy, I would like to propose #VictoryBell for DC, especially for Catwoman. So please, for the love of God, get a hold of DC, let them know that she is indeed probably more than willing to do the role. Please, that would be awesome. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of your more complex costumes and some of the things that go into them, starting with I think one of your more impressive costumes being Maleficent. What was the process basically of just creating that? Because obviously you have the dress and you had the horns and you also had the wings. How long of a process was that just to create that and get it to that final stages?
Yeah, Maleficent took me about 3 months, and it was mostly planning on my part. I designed every single piece of that and helped create the horns, and helped create the felt feathers. but in general, like, I really needed help on everything, so I reached out to a lot of Etsy shops and different people who knew how to create costumes, since Maleficent was really the first one that didn't have a pattern behind it. It was my own kind of idea of how I wanted my Maleficent to look. Most of the patterns for Maleficent is her evil, dark costume and, like, her headdress that goes into horns and stuff like that, and the staff, but I wanted to do the old fairy version one, not old, but the before she became evil kind of version of her. So my main preparations for that and whatnot was drawing and reaching out and seeing who could help me with these certain steps, because I myself had not dabbled in sewing or Worbla, thermoplastics, nothing of that sense. And I was also just, graduating college, and it wasn't the best time for me to kind of dive into costuming. It was more like diving into career work, saying bye to my basketball career and hello to being an adult. So I asked for help on everything. So Maleficent was my first one that, yes, I created by design, but no, I didn't create much handiwork by myself.
What was probably the most difficult part about that costume, in your honest opinion?
Probably the most difficult part was trying to figure out how to make the wings kind of be better. They are felt feathers, and now that I work with felt often, I think it's hilarious that that's all they were, because felt is a very forgiving fabric, but at the same time, it's not sturdy. It can't hold up, and my feathers obviously didn't, so I had to reinforce them all with hangers, and which is funny, it's my first idea of using some sort of wiring as the feather middle. And so I used a bunch of different old hangers and just straightened them out and used them as boning for the feathers, and then just kind of repainted and glittered the feathers a little bit to make them just look a little more feminine, a little more magical. And the wings in general just don't sit very well because we used ribbon to tie them on. And again, not the most long-standing type of creation that I could use over and over again. I still have the wings. I hope I get to use them again. If not, maybe I'll sell them. But in general, I'm trying to create things that are a little more comfortable and a little more useful, and that can be used a long period of time. And that's kind of the big thing with props, is that I don't want to spend hours upon hours making them and use them once and then not use them ever again. It's just not smart.
Well, with those kind of feathers, are they basically made here in the U.S., or do you have to go to like a different country just to get them?
No, you make them yourself out of felt. Felt is a fabric. So felt is just a fabric. You go to Joann's Fabric. They have rolls upon rolls of felt. It's pretty cheap too, which is awesome. I would suggest, if you're going to make felt feathers, use double-sided felt. Make sure you use, nice light glue. I used lap-tied glue, a big container for my newest feathers. I did not use felt because I don't know how good felt and glue go together. I know felt is a fabric that is kind of a little absorbent, so it will absorb your glue and maybe just leak through everywhere, and that's why I didn't use double-sided felt feathers, but maybe they'd be a little more sturdy. Felt in general, I think, is just for a pretty look, so I don't use felt feathers no more. So okay. That explains anything. I don't do it anymore because it wasn't a good idea.
Well, it was very interesting, and you showed me this a couple of weeks ago. Some of like the engineering, like mechanics, like the metal. What is it? The metal mechanism that you use to put the feathers on and create the wings. Let's talk about that just a little bit. How long does it even just to create something like that? Because I know you definitely have a lot of help, just making that, but that still probably takes like quite a bit of time just to create that, I guess.
The frame.
The frame.
The framework in general actually took the least amount of time because we just, let me really quick make sure I get to pull up some people, because I really should mention people when I talk about them, because I did do this with a few people, and I used Alexa Norega's tutorial on YouTube. Alexis Norega, and she does wings over and over and over, and she sells wings to people. She makes static and movable wings, and so me and my two guys who work at Unrivaled Prototyping, which I'm kind of involved in them. We're starting this company. It's these two brothers that live near me, and I went to school with them, and they've been wanting to dabble into 3D printing and 3D design. And so they reached out to me and like, hey, we want to do some props and stuff. We see you make some props. You want to, get together, see if we can do something cool. And I'm like, heck yes, I don't have a way to make 3D printing. You do. Let's do it. Let's collaborate together and make some magic. And so when I showed them my idea and showed them like, hey, I'm looking to make 16-foot wings for my newest costume, for my biggest costume that I've ever made, they were like, let's do it. And so we looked up the tutorial I've been looking at throughout the past probably 3 years. I've been watching Alexis make these wings, and we built our framework out of aluminum and wood, and we basically went off of her own version. So when people asked for, like, they're like, oh, do you explain, do you have a tutorial of this? And I'm like, this was my first set, and I would not trust, and thank goodness I didn't make a tutorial, because we messed up so many times. But I will eventually, I hope to make a tutorial, but Alexis has a tutorial online right now up for everyone, and she did such a good job. I mean, that's how I based my wings. My wings are obviously different, because she was going for a hawk girl wing, and I was going for an angelic, huge black wing. But the overall details and description of what you should do to make a wing, and what you need to do to make the feathers and string them together and all that crap is all on her YouTube page, which is Alexis Norega, and we'll have a link or something in our Change the F Up preview, just so if anyone's interested in kind of just seeing the process I used without me in it, that's what I use. And I suggest to anyone who is interested in making their own props to definitely dabble with YouTube and dabble with these tutorials, because that's kind of really how you can be on the right path. Because someone like Alexis, who makes wings for a living, like, she sells them to people. I mean, that's who you want to follow. You want to follow somebody who's been successful in it, and thank goodness I did, because it helped.
Right. Well, I'll definitely have a link for that up on our page, as you mentioned. Also, whenever we're sharing the page, sharing the episode, we'll try to include the link in there as well. But also, what goes into this preparation, you definitely mentioned, costume is one thing. Second thing definitely has to be some of the props that you had. And this last one that you did of The Undertaker and your scythe that you had, I was very impressed on how you just created this amazing just project. Talk about the process, and maybe even how long it took just to create that, because I would think that you would have to take a lot of time just to find the right, features to put on that.
Yeah, so my Undertaker is from Black Butler. The Undertaker is a character who's like this goofy side character that a lot of people don't know. But what I really liked about him is he's really funny, and his weapon is just ginormous and amazing. So that was kind of the first project me and Unrivaled Prototyping took on. After I like threw a huge angel at them, I was like, oh, by the way, beforehand we need to make this site. And so